Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room. St. Louis Rams.
Okay, raise your hand if you had the St. Louis Rams winning more than 5 games this season. Raise your hand. I didn't see many hands. Maybe one, maybe 2 hands up. Those were both St. Louis Ram fans. I had this team, and look, don't judge me, okay? Don't judge me. I had this team going 0-16 when I did my lab reports before the season started. Now, look, I didn't believe that. I even said it when I said that I thought they were going 0-16. I didn't believe that for 1 second. Teams don't go 0-16 in the National Football League. You have to be abysmal, and everything has to go wrong for you all in one season, and it normally doesn't happen that way. And I had even said it myself that Jeff Fisher himself is worth 3 or 4 victories a season because he's that good of a head coach. So I knew this wasn't an 0-16 team, but I went off of my sheet. I looked at the sheet and I said, I can't see this Rams team winning many games. I don't know who they're going to be. Well, this was a 7-win team. And honestly, they fooled the hell out of me. I was shocked. And I'm not going to sit here and make up some kind of preposterous story as to how I thought they were going to get it done. That wasn't me. I didn't think that the Rams had 7 victories in them. And before I move on, I have to introduce myself. I am Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the lab follow-up. This is the St. Louis Rams that we're talking about today. And they had a whale of a season. These are the type of seasons that you look back on and you use these as springboards to launch you into the future. A successful one at that. Jeff Fisher, first year head coach of this St. Louis Rams football team. And Fisher probably could have had his choice of a number of coaching jobs, and he picked this one. And I think I know why he picked this one. He picked it because of Sam Bradford. As a coach, you always want to have a quarterback. That's the one thing you can't go without. You can have a shoddy defense. Your offensive line can be pathetic. But if you don't have a signal caller, you don't have a chance. I've said it time and time again. But it's the truth. You know it. I know it. Everyone else knows it. You have to have a quarterback in the National Football League. Now look, Sam Bradford was starting to look like damaged goods because I just spoke about a shoddy offensive line. Well, this St. Louis Rams team for the last 2 seasons have among the worst offensive lines in the National Football League. It's a known fact. You go back, you look at the numbers, the amount of sacks they've given up. The fact that every time you look at Sam Bradford, it looks like he has a black eye and one eye is bigger than the other, lets you know that he's an abused man. And it was because he was standing behind a very, very Swiss cheese patchwork offensive line. And every year, that man was taking an absolute pounding. Well, Jeff Fisher came in. He helped fix that problem. He kept Sam Bradford upright a lot more so this year than he has been in his career to this point. And thus, the Rams had one of their best seasons in his career to this point. Now, again, keep in mind, Sam Bradford was 1 game away from taking the Rams to the playoffs in his rookie season, but that was the 7-9 St. Louis Rams. That would have been an 8-8 St. Louis Rams team that would have made it to the playoffs had they went. That was not a good football team. That was just a team that would have went by default if they would have won that final game in Seattle in that season. But they didn't. And so they didn't go to the playoffs. And so Sam Bradford had a solid year that season, but it did not compare to what he did this season under Jeff Fisher. And so the Rams had a lot that they could build off of in this season. They beat some solid opponents in this season. When you look at the Rams' resume, they won 7 games, they lost 8, and they had a tie. And the rare tie in the National Football League, but they had one. And it was against the team that's in the Super Bowl from the NFC, from their division, the San Francisco 49ers. And they also beat that same San Francisco 49ers football team. Along with the Redskins, along with the Seahawks, this Rams team beat some very good opponents. Keep in mind, they started the season 3-2. A lot of high hopes at that point. And look, I said they weren't going to win many games. I thought they were going to go over. And look, I really didn't think that. I thought this was a 3-win team, honestly speaking. But again, I went off of my sheet because I looked at the beginning, and you can never tell at the beginning of the season who's good, who's not. And so really picking winners and doing prognostications before the season, that's irrelevant. Because you look at a sheet and you say to yourself, okay, this team is going to be bad. Like, I thought the Chiefs were going to be good. And so when the Chiefs were playing against other teams, I didn't count that as a win automatically because I thought the Chiefs were going to be a team that competed for the AFC West crown, not knowing that the Chiefs were going to be one of the worst teams in the National Football League. So prognosticating before the beginning of the season really does you no good. You don't know who's going to be good. You don't know what injuries are going to occur. You don't know what team is going to show up week in, week out. So talking about this Rams football team before the season did make a difference. Seeing them come out of the gate 3-2, and look, that first game of the season against Detroit on the road, where they were basically winning that game all the way through until the end, let me know, hey, this team is going to fight under Jeff Fisher. If they don't win, they're going to scare the bejesus out of you. But I didn't think that momentum that they got from that loss in week 1 against Detroit on the road would carry over and help them win their next 3 out of 4 games and get to 3-2 to start this season. I mean, at that point, a lot of people were talking about the St. Louis Rams and how impressive they've been and how Jeff Fisher had this group inspired and playing really good football. I'll tell you one thing. Despite the woes of this offense, because this offense struggled this season, they only averaged 18.7 points a game. That was good for 25th in the league. So they struggled offensively, did this St. Louis Rams offense. But defensively, I'm a Redskins fan. And so I saw this Rams team in week 2. After playing the Rams in St. Louis, there was no other game in the season that scared me more than that game. I'll tell you why. This St. Louis Rams defense gets after your quarterback. They're relentless. And when they start getting pressure and they start collapsing that pocket, your quarterback is in trouble because they're a physical group. Know this about Jeff Fisher. Say what you want about him. He's a physical head coach. And what I mean by that is he coaches a physical brand of football. When you play the Rams, you're going to know that you just played in a football game. And it was a physical one at that. And for the Redskins, I don't think there was any more physical game all season long. And I'm pretty sure a lot of teams could say that after they played against the Rams. There was no more physical game that season than against the Rams. They really abused Robert Griffin III. They hit him every opportunity they had and every opportunity that they could get out of bounds, in bounds, after the play, during the play. It didn't matter. They're a physical group. Sometimes they bend the rules a little bit, but that's what the St. Louis Rams were in 2012. And again, a lot of that comes from their head coach. Jeff Fisher coaches them to be physical. Any team that has Cortland Finnegan on it, going to be a team that is borderline dirty but very physical. And mentally, you're going to have to be sharp when you play that team. And that's what the Rams forced you to do. And that's what the Rams forced you to do all season. Be physical, but be mentally sharp. Because if you let your guard down, you can fall into the trap. And early on, they beat the Redskins. They beat the Seahawks. And they beat the Arizona Cardinals. Keep in mind, the Cardinals started the season 4-0. So when they beat the Cardinals early on in the season, the Cardinals were a good football team. If you forgot, this Rams team gave the Cardinals their first loss of the season. So they were playing good football. As we know, in the National Football League, bad teams or teams that haven't reached that plateau yet of being a good team, as the Rams are not yet, they couldn't handle the success of being over 500 after 5 weeks of football. It was just too much for this Rams team to take in. Then they proceeded to drop 4 out of the next 5 games, with the one game that they didn't drop being a tie. So in all actuality, they dropped 5 in a row because a tie, for most intents and purposes, is like a loss in the National Football League. The only time it helps you is if the team that you're chasing for a playoff spot loses, and that tie is more like a win in that instance. But there's not going to be many instances where a tie helps you out. You want to win. You don't want a tie. And so after that stretch of football, going from 3-2 to 4-6-1, they were done. The Rams were done. Their season, which had started with so much promise and hope, was basically now reduced to, hey, let's just try to salvage this season and really carry into next year some form of momentum. Let's build off of finishing this season strong and carry it into next year. And that's basically what they did. They finished up the season winning 3 out of their last 5. One of those wins coming over the 49ers. And so they played some really inspired football. They went on the road. They beat Tampa Bay, a team that had been surging at that point. And so this Rams team, again, like I said, they had some quality victories this season. And they're not a team that was to be slept on. Again, if this offense was better. And Sam Bradford, to me, had his best season of his career thus far. 21 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, over 3,700 yards passing. He got it done. Again, they need more talent on the offensive side of the football. You know, this offensive line is starting to shape into form. Roger Saffold, I thought, had a good, solid season at left tackle. You're looking for more improvement, and it's happening. It's a process, and I thought that the Rams took a huge step in the right direction this year in terms of offense. This draft that they had this past season, they got a lot of stuff in this draft. Normally, when you have so many picks in a draft, half of them don't pan out. Half of them never play a down for you in the National Football League. Well, the Rams had about 11 or 12 draft choices, and probably 10 of them saw the field in meaningful capacity for this Rams team in 2012. I mean, you look at Michael Brockers, their first overall selection. He had 3 sacks. He was a contributor on that defensive line, at defensive tackle. You look at Isaiah P., that was their second-round pick. He may be one of the ones that really doesn't get to play that often. I mean, they drafted a 7th-round back, Daryl Richardson, and they liked him more than they did Isaiah P., and Richardson ended up being the second leading rusher on this team. So that shows you the depth of this draft. You know, we're talking about Tremaine Johnson. We're talking about Brian Quick. We're talking about Givens at the receiver position. We're talking about Janoris Jenkins. We're talking about a lot of players that contributed to this Rams team in 2012. And so when you get value out of your draft that way, you get quick turnarounds. We talked about a lot of teams that were in the front of the draft in 2013 that don't have a lot of talent. And it's because they don't have drafts like the Rams had in 2012, where you have 6, 7, 8 guys that contribute from your draft class, and you can see them being a part of your future moving forward. And I thought that the Rams did a great job of drafting guys that fit needs that can come in and help them. They didn't have a receiver over 700 yards this year, but what they did have was 3 or 4 receivers that topped 500 yards, that were in that 500 to 690 yard range. Givens, Danny Amendola, and if Amendola doesn't get hurt, he probably tops not only 700, he probably gets close to 1,000 yards receiving. He's a dangerous threat for this Rams offense. He's a guy that's hard to cover. And so, had he not been hurt on 2 separate occasions in this season, there's no doubt in my mind Danny Amendola eclipses 1,000 yards receiving this season. He had been on a torrid pace at the beginning before he hurt himself. So you take Amendola, you take Givens, you look at Austin Pettis, you look at Brandon Gibson. There's talent. There's talent out wide. And there's still guys that are looking to develop. I don't think Austin Pettis has developed the way the Rams thought he would up to this point, but he's coming along. Brian Quick really didn't do much in his rookie campaign, but he's a big body, long frame guy that they feel like can be an asset to them, especially in the red zone. Look for him to be someone that they look to make plays for them in the coming season. So, a lot of talent there. Steven Jackson eclipsed 1,000 yards again. You know, one of the only backs in NFL history to go over 1,000 yards, you know, the first 7 or 8 years of their career. He did it again in 2012. How long is Steven Jackson going to be around for them? Is this it? I'm hearing chirping in my ear of Steven Jackson potentially retiring. Does he want to go play for a contender? The Rams have already said, if that's his wish, we will grant it. We don't want to hold him hostage. He's been too good to us. What is Steven Jackson going to do? Does he want to see this thing through? They came so close this year to getting over the top. Does he think that the Rams can finally do it in 2013 and wants to hang around and be there when it finally happens? Or does he want to have the chance to win? Don't know. Don't know the answer to that, but Steven Jackson was able to get it done again. But I don't think you have his replacement on this team right now. I like Daryl Richardson. I don't know how much the Rams like Isaiah Peed, but neither one of these guys are a #1 running back in the National Football League. I think Daryl Richardson is a great change of pace #2 back. But I think if you're the Rams, you need another back to come in and be your main ball carrier. And so I think that's something that you need to address here in the next draft or so in the offseason. I think that the Rams are slowly building some things on offense. I just named a lot of receivers that they have out wide. A lot of young talent there. You look at the tight end position, Lance Kendricks. If he can focus, catch the ball more consistently, you've got a tight end there that could really be an asset to this offense. They can be a dangerous group if they can protect Sam Bradford like they did in 2012. Again, 21 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 3,700 yards passing. One of his best seasons, if not his best season. You got to like what you see from Sam Bradford when they're able to keep him upright. And so they got to put it in the end zone more. 18.7 points a game will not cut it in the National Football League. You won't beat many teams in this league scoring less than 20 points a game. So that's something that the Rams will have to shore up in the offseason. Finding ways to score more points. This defense, they did their job. They were a solid bunch. And I tell you what, I talked about how they got pressure on the quarterback. 51 sacks in the National Football League for this St. Louis Rams bunch in 2012. That is a huge number. Top 5 were the Rams in sacks this season. And 51 is a huge number. When you got guys on the edges like Chris Long, who gives you 12.5 sacks, And then on the other side, you look across and Robert Quinn is giving you 11. Hard to not get to 51 when you got two guys on each side that can get pressure on the quarterback. And these are guys that can consistently be double-digit sack guys for you moving forward. Have to be impressed with what the Rams bring defensively. And they come from all angles. It's not just these two guys. There's William Hayes, who chipped in with 7. I told you about Michael Brockers. He came in with another 3. There's guys getting it done from multiple angles. You don't know where the pressure is coming from. That's the sign of a very good defensive line. When it's collapsing from all angles and guys are getting sacks from multiple positions. That's what this Rams unit did. And they got sacks from everywhere. And they brought pressure from the safety position. Quentin Michael had sacks. You didn't know where the pressure was coming from. And they got young talent everywhere. You look at that linebacking corps. That's a good linebacking unit. You know, Joe Lund Dunbar thought was a great acquisition in free agency a couple seasons ago from the Saints. You look at James Laurinaitis. He is the centerpiece of this defense. He is the engine that drives this St. Louis Rams defense. You look at the secondary. Jeff Fisher brought along with him Cortland Finnegan. And he's an irritant is what he is. He is the emotional fire of this defense. He's the gasoline. If Laurinaitis is the engine, he's the gasoline in the tank. Can't drive anywhere without your gas. Can't go anywhere without your engine. And so he was a big cog in that machine defensively for the Rams. But there's a lot of young talent here. Again, Janoris Jenkins had a stellar rookie campaign. 4 interceptions. 2 of those went to the house. You look at Tremaine Johnson, the corner out of Montana. He's another interchangeable part. He can play at the safety position. He can play at the corner position. Another guy that stepped up, had a couple picks in this season. A lot of young talent on this Rams defense. And so, sky's the limit for them defensively. If they could just get more points from this offense, this Rams team could be scary in the near future. Don't sleep on the St. Louis Rams as I did before this season started. What was so impressive about the 2012 St. Louis Rams, and I've already talked about it, but it bears mentioning again, is how many home runs they hit in this draft. I mean, Brockers looks like he's going to be a player. Janoris Jenkins was a player. Tremaine Johnson looks like he's going to be a player. Daryl Richardson looks like he's going to be a contributor on this team. Brian Quick has potential to be a key contributor on this team. We don't know what Isaiah Pease is going to be. I just ran off about 7 draft choices. 6 of them were key contributors in 2012. And I didn't even get to the biggest one out of that whole draft class. That's right, a kicker. Greg the Leg Zuerlein, a.k.a. Young Jeezy, a.k.a. Legatron. You have to be very good at the kicker position to get 3 nicknames in your rookie season. All but unheard of. What kicker do you know has 1 nickname, let alone 3, in his rookie campaign? That's how good Greg Zuerlein was for the St. Louis Rams in 2012. He might have been the most impactful rookie that they drafted. And that's saying a lot when I just named 6 or 7 rookies that contributed heavily to the success of this St. Louis Rams football team in 2012. And to have the kicker shine above all of these guys tells you that he was tremendous. And he was all but automatic, especially from anywhere 50 and beyond. I mean, he was money. And anytime you have that luxury of knowing, hey, I just need to cross midfield and get another 5 yards or so, and then I'm in field goal range, that's a luxury that most teams would kill to have. And it makes it that much harder to play defense against a team like that, because knowing, hey, we can't give up another first down once they get to midfield or they're in field goal range. We can't even give up 7 yards, because if he has the opportunity to kick a 59-yard field goal, they're going to take it and he's going to make it. And so it's a psychological thing. As a coach, you've got a lot of cards at your disposal when you have a kicker that can give you 3 points from just about anywhere past midfield. It's a great feeling, and I know Jeff Fisher felt really good about his chances with Greg Zuerlein back there, knowing that, hey, if we don't get it done on this offensive possession, we're going to get 3 out of the deal. So I feel like the Rams did themselves a huge favor last season by having such an extraordinary draft. And they need to do it again. Be smart in free agency. Again. Be smart in the draft. Again. If they can put together another draft like the one that they just put together, have that many guys come and make their roster and be contributors as they were in 2012, this Rams team will take that next step that they're looking to take. And it doesn't have to be a 3 or a 4 year process, as I thought it was going to be when Jeff Fisher took over this group. It doesn't have to be that way. I said on my lab report for the Rams that it could be some shortcuts. There are some shortcuts. There are some back roads that you can take to get to the playoffs, to becoming a better franchise. There are some back roads and some shortcuts. And Jeff Fisher is the guy you want driving the bus because he knows all of those routes. He knows the shortcuts. He knows those back roads like the back of his hand. He can get you where you want to go, but you have to be willing to buy in. And it seems like this Rams team bought in 2012. Some more shrewd moves in the offseason last year, trading with the Redskins to acquire more picks, has landed the Rams 2 first-round picks this season. Now they have their own and the Redskins' first-round pick. So not only are they picking 16th, but they'll probably be picking 22nd or 23rd as well. So the Rams have some ammunition at their disposal. Let's see what they do with it. You could use another running back. Steven Jackson is not getting any younger. I already stated that. You could use some more offensive linemen. You could use another linebacker. Rocky McIntosh was starting at points for you last season. You could use a really good outside linebacker. You could use a lot of different parts. You could use another safety. Right? You saw Craig Dahl back there a few times. You would like to not see Craig Dahl in the game. And so there's a lot of things that you could use if you are the St. Louis Rams still. You got a long way to go. You had a great season. By your standards. 7-8-1. That's a great number. I tell you what, many people didn't have you winning more than 5 games in this season. For you to go out and grab 7, beat some really good teams along the way, nothing to hang your head about. That's a season you can build off of. And if you make some good moves in this offseason, use these picks to better yourself. I tell you what, the St. Louis Rams could potentially be one of those playoff teams who don't make it the year before but make it that next year. You know the NFL has turnover in these playoffs, and the same teams don't make it every year. There's always a new crop that gets in. The Rams could be a part of that new wave next season if they make some really good moves, some smart moves, some educated and calculated risks, because when you have extra picks, you're allowed to take some risk. Make some calculated risks, but make sure that they pay off if you take these risks. You may not need another receiver, but if there's one there staring you in the face that you think can help your team next season, why not? You may not need another defensive end. You may not need another defensive tackle, but if it's one staring you right in the face, and he's an ultra-talented guy, you don't have to pass him up. The name of the game is talent. And if you're the Rams, acquire as much of it as humanly possible. You see another corner out there dangling? Grab him. Again, you could use safety help. You could use another running back. You could use offensive line help. But if those players aren't there when you draft, and someone else that's very high on your board is, but that player is at a position that already is stacked, take him anyway. The more, the merrier. You can never have enough talent in the National Football League at any position, except quarterback maybe. And even then, you can never have enough talent in the National Football League. And so the Rams are sitting in a very good spot this season because they're right on the cusp of doing something special, and they have a lot of pieces to which to play with in the offseason. A lot of draft choices, a lot of cap space to do some things, a lot of flexibility. This Rams team could be dangerous in 2013. And that's going to do it for the St. Louis Rams on this edition of the Lab Follow-Up in the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. Stay tuned on this segment as we continue on down the list of teams in draft order. As we get to the 17th team in the draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So come back, join me tomorrow as we talk the Steel Curtain and the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they need to do to get back to the postseason. It's not often that this Steelers team does not make the postseason, but that's what happened in 2012. We'll talk about it, get in depth with what the Steelers need to do to be better tomorrow here on the Lab Follow-Up. See you then. Have a good one.
St. Louis Rams.